What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to the first episode of what I hope will be an ongoing series on some speculative NHL trades. Obviously, these are not trades that I have any insider knowledge of. I certainly don't. These are just trades that make sense to me, and I'm interested to hear what you folks think. We're going to go with a very simple name for this series. We're just going to call it Nhl Trade Talk. And the subject of the very first Nhl Trade Talk is Oliver Ekman-Larsson, captain of the Arizona Coyotes. The 29-year-old Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been sitting fairly highly on TSN's trade bait board for quite some time. Again, captain of the Arizona Coyotes, former first-round draft pick from 2009. Ekman-Larsson was signed just prior to last season to an 8-year extension valued at $8.25 million against the cap, so it is a lot of money for the Arizona Coyotes to move. Of course, it's no surprise to anybody that's been paying attention all the turmoil that the Arizona Coyotes have been going through in their front office. The money just doesn't seem to be there, and some change looks like it may need to happen. Ekman-Larsson is coming off of a season where he put up 30 points in 66 games and 4 points in 9 playoff games. Despite some numbers that probably don't jump off the page at you or anybody else, everyone knows what the offensive upside of Oliver Ekman-Larsson is, and when you take a look at his advanced numbers, he's a positive possession player as well. Ekman-Larsson is the single most expensive piece on an Arizona Coyotes roster, which, evidenced by the Michael Grabner buyout earlier today, is killing for a little financial flexibility. It would be really tough to trade your captain, but you're not going to find any more financial flexibility than by doing that. So now that we've talked a little bit about the subject, let's talk a little bit about the trade partner, and that trade partner is the New York Rangers. The Rangers are entering this offseason with the 5th most cap space in the entire NHL. They currently sit with only $58.4 million committed against the salary cap for next season and moving forward. Over $23 million in cap space, and when you look at who they have to re-sign, there's no real big names outside of Alexander Georgiev, Anthony DeAngelo, and I would say Ryan Strome is probably the biggest forward they have to re-sign. Not a lot of money needs to be committed to the players they still have on the table. After ripping off the Band-Aid with the buyout of Henrik Lundqvist, the Rangers have ample money to spend, and they proved with the Panarin move that they're not afraid to spend it. This is a big money market team. I expect them to act like it. And when you look at the Rangers roster, the offense is certainly there. Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Pavel Buchnevich, Kaapo Kakko, Brett Howden. They've got offensive pieces, not to mention they willy-nilly went and won the draft lottery, which means they've got a potential generational winger in Alexis Lafreniere just a little ways away. They also have a relatively deep prospect pool, including names like Vitaly Kravtsov and Lias Andersson. The Rangers are not hurting anywhere except on defense. Granted, they do have a couple of interesting prospects, and it would be a defensive prospect that the Arizona Coyotes would be wanting in return for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, in addition to, of course, a first-round pick, which the Coyotes are dying for. The Rangers have both of those things. What they don't have, and maybe the only missing piece that they don't have, is a true complement to Jacob Trouba on their top pair. That's what Oliver Ekman-Larsson is. So obviously, what's the return? We know Oliver Ekman-Larsson would be going to New York, but what would the Arizona Coyotes be achieving in trading away Oliver Ekman-Larsson? Well, the New York Rangers have 2 first-round picks. They have their own, which of course got bumped up to the first overall pick. They're not moving that. They're not getting rid of Alexis Lafreniere unless their absolute life as a franchise depended on it. They do, however, have Carolina's first-round pick, which ultimately became the 22nd pick in the draft. So that is a first-round pick that the Arizona Coyotes, again, are absolutely dying for. They're dying for a first-round pick. The 22nd overall pick goes back to Arizona, but we're not done. Coyotes management has made it clear that one of the other big pieces that they would need to come back would be a defensive prospect. Now, the name that jumps off of the Rangers sheet, of course, is K'Andre Miller, but I'm of the opinion that K'Andre Miller probably plays at the NHL level next year. I don't think the Rangers are going to be willing to give him up. I would look more at a name like Libor Hajek, maybe Yegor Rykov, as one of the names that could go back in the other direction. Both of them are left-shot defensemen, just like Oliver Ekman-Larsson is. Obviously, I don't think either one of them will ever live up to being OEL, but they certainly fill the same position need. Obviously, you look at that trade, you look at both sides of it, no salary retained. We still don't think Arizona's getting quite enough. So we're also going to look at one of the offensive prospects that the Rangers can now afford to give up from their left side, given that they have Alexis Lafreniere incoming. I'm looking at a pair of names. It's either Elias Anderson or it's Tim Gettinger, and I'm actually going to look at Tim Gettinger simply because I think Tim Gettinger is closer to the NHL than Elias Anderson is. Gettinger had a really good season last year with Hartford in the AHL. He was a half-point-a-game player. He played a pair of games for the Rangers in the regular season. And while it's true that Elias Anderson did play 17 games with the Rangers last year, he only had a single point, and he spent a number of games across the pond over in Europe. I think Elias Anderson needs more time at the AHL level, and I think for Arizona, they're going to be a little more attracted to a player that's a little bit closer to contributing to their NHL lineup. For me, that's Tim Gettinger. But for the sake of not splitting hairs, I'm going to leave that open to interpretation. You can choose to include either one of those players, not both of them, but you can choose to include either one of those players. And hey, you can choose to include either of those two defensive prospects. Between the two of them, for me, I would think Libor Hajek would have a little bit more value, but if you want to go Hajek or you want to go Rykov, you can go either way. So for the record, our NHL Trade Talk trade for Oliver Ekman-Larsson is as follows. The Arizona Coyotes trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson to the New York Rangers in exchange for the number 22 overall pick in the upcoming 2020 NHL Draft, one of either left defenseman Yegor Rykov or left defenseman Libor Hajek, and one of either left winger Elias Anderson or left winger Tim Gettinger. So there you have it, folks. Craft that trade however you would like, and let me know in the comment section below. What do you think of this trade? What do you think of the fit for OEL with the New York Rangers? What do you think of the return that Arizona would be getting from New York? All of that, let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoy this format, let me know that you want to see more of these videos. I've got some ideas about some names that are sitting there on that trade board. Maybe a Patrick Laine, maybe a Shane Gostisbehere, maybe a Nick Ehlers. There's all kinds of stuff we can talk about. Let me know if you like the format. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and we'll see you next time on NHL Trade Talk.